F1C1 series transmission is an automatic continuously variable transmission component newly developed by Mitsubishi Motors. This transmission has realized outstanding economic efficiency and power performance by obtaining continuously variable gear ratio corresponding to the driving conditions. Since CVT allows the gear ratio to change continuously variably, the engine can be operated closely to the most optimized fuel consumption ratio at any time. Thus, it can economize fuel consumption. When the vehicle requires a large torque, such as acceleration, power performance can be improved by operating the engine closely to the maximum output point. To make clear the drive feeling difference between the vehicle with CVT and the vehicle with conventional automatic transmission, let's look at how the reading of the speedometer and the tachometer change while driving. First, the conventional automatic transmission. As you see, the engine speed increases as the vehicle speed increases. The upshift will be seen by the stepped movement of the tachometer. Next, CVT. The vehicle speed increases while the engine speed is kept in constant in the part of acceleration. Also, you'll be aware of the gear shift has been carried out continuously and smoothly without any shift shock. The selector lever has 6 positions, P, R, N, D, DS and L, for general export and GCC models. In D range, the gear ratio is automatically and continuously changed from low speed to overdrive corresponding to the road conditions. And gear ratio pattern varies according to the driving conditions and the driver's habits by the INVEX3 function. In DS range, slope and sporty drive range, powerful sporty drive and stronger engine brakes can be obtained by providing relatively lower gear ratio. Now, let's look at the construction and operation of this transmission. The torque converter with the damper clutch has been adopted like a conventional automatic transmission. The highly efficient external gear pump has been adopted for an oil pump to obtain sufficient belt clamping force. The forward-reverse changeover mechanism consists of a planetary gear, hydraulic multi-plate type clutch and brake. When the vehicle moves forward, the forward clutch is operated. When the vehicle moves in reverse, the reverse brake is operated. The wave disc has been adopted for the forward clutch and reverse brake to reduce the drag torque and shift shock. The shift mechanism consists of 2 pulleys, the primary pulley and the secondary pulley, that can change the groove width in the shaft direction and the steel belt. The mechanism changes the groove width by sliding the pulley on the pulley shaft and changes the winding radius of the steel belt that is corresponding to the driving conditions to obtain continuously variable gear ratio from low to overdrive. In the primary pulley side, the double pistons have been installed to secure sufficient belt clamp force at the low hydraulic pressure. And this design realizes an optimally small piston diameter and thus provides the input shaft the differential shift distance to be as short as that of the conventional 4-speed automatic transmission. The single piston and spring have been provided in the secondary pulley side. The steel belt consists of 2 pairs of bands and approximately 450 steel blocks. A high-density non-woven fabric has been adopted for the oil filter and a magnet has been placed near the fluid inlet. As a CVT fluid, ATF SP3 is used to improve the durability and control stability of the damper clutch and the forward clutch. The engine control unit and CVT control unit have been integrated as one unit, so-called engine CVT ECU. This ECU locates behind the glove box. A newly developed giant magnet resistance or GMR type speed sensor has been adopted for the input shaft speed sensor, the primary pulley speed sensor and output shaft speed sensor. The speed sensor has the features of improved pulse detecting accuracy and lower production cost compared with the conventional Hall element type speed sensor. The primary pressure sensor and secondary pressure sensor have been installed in the hydraulic passages. The primary pressure and the line pressure can be read out in the data list on the MUT2 display. There is the limitation of service on CVT components. Inspection and replacement of the electrical components, the replacement of valve body assembly are allowed. But further service operation with disassembly is not allowed. Here, let us show you the service points of CVT. When removing the valve body from the transmission case, remove 34 mounting bolts of the valve body assembly. Do not remove these two bolts. 4 solenoid valves are mounted on the valve body: the line pressure control solenoid valve, the clutch pressure control solenoid valve, the shift control solenoid valve, and the damper clutch control solenoid valve. Here, the shift control solenoid valve, it is not allowed to remove and replace the shift control solenoid valve as a single part. Accordingly, when the replacement of the shift control solenoid valve is necessary, replace it as a valve body assembly. Because the primary pressure has been precisely adjusted at the final assembly stage in the manufacture. If the solenoid valve would be replaced as a single part, it may cause improper primary pressure lead to the incorrect shift control. In the removal of the left-hand side drive shaft from CVT, those new special tools have been introduced: the drive shaft puller and extension bar. In order to enhance the troubleshooting, the freeze-frame data function has been adopted in the MUT2. When the engine CVT ECU detects the failure and stores the diagnosis code, the status of CVT at that moment is also stored. The freeze-frame data can be selected after pressing the special function key in the display of self-diagnosis code. In the data list display, the following data are new from the F4A4 series automatic transmission: the turbine speed sensor, which means the input shaft speed sensor output; the primary speed, which means the primary pulley speed sensor output; secondary speed, which means the output shaft speed sensor output; gear ratio, primary pressure and line pressure. On the hydraulic pressure test, these 5 pressure takeoff ports are available to connect the pressure gauges. When the battery cable is disconnected, the CVT learning value stored in the engine CVT ECU has been reset. It may lead the shift quality worse. If this happens, perform the learning procedure. The details of the procedure will be referred with the workshop manual. In this procedure, be noted when conducting the following garage shift learning. When operating neutral to drive and neutral to reverse shift, hold the selector lever for 2 seconds or more at respective range. Especially, hold at the neutral range for enough time until the engine speed is stabilized. Then start the next operation.